Hi guys, it's me, Anne Marie, and I'm hanging out here at the Glenwood Linwood Library getting ready to show you an awesome tutorial today on how to make a DIY flower container garden. So before we start, let's talk about the supplies you'll need to do this project. Number one, you're going to need some sort of container to put your flowers in. Make sure that you have a really good drainage system on it. Otherwise you'll have to put your own holes into whatever container you pick, but be creative with that. Secondly, you're going to need some quality potting soil. You can see I use Miracle-Gro. I've been using it already, but any potting soil will be good. You'll need some garden gloves. If you don't have any, like I couldn't find any here, so because of COVID we are using the rubber gloves. You will need a garden shovel. If you don't have a hand shovel, another good thing that you can use that's really inexpensive in a pinch is if you have a disposable Solo cup, go on ahead and use that. I normally use that to dig the dirt out of the bag as well as to dig holes. Works perfect. Next, you'll need whatever plant or flowers you plan on putting into your container garden, and lastly, a water hose or some sort of container of water. So let's talk about the various supplies that you're going to need. For your container, which is the first and foremost important part, you're going to want to decide what size you want. Any size container that you decide to use, you want to make sure it has good drainage again. So this hole is really important, or you'll have to make holes yourself so that your plant can drain properly to remain healthy. Another thing you need to take into consideration aside from size is you're going to want to decide where you're going to place your container. Either it's going to be on a porch or in a shady location, or are you going to put it in a place that's going to receive full sun all day long. Next, you'll want to go on ahead and pick potting soil. Make sure your bag says potting soil, especially if you use Miracle-Gro, because they also do garden soil. Here's the difference between garden soil and potting soil. Garden soil is basically made of native soil, which is the dirt that's outside, as well as some sand and some other ingredients mixed in there. It's great if you're planting flowers in your garden, but not so great for a container garden. Potting mix, on the other hand, is a different combination that does not contain any sand or any soil, and it contains plant food in it. Most bags will tell you that the plant food will feed your plants from anywhere from 3 to 6 months, which is awesome, because that way it'll last throughout the growing season and you won't have to purchase any plant food in addition to your potting mix. Lastly, we want to talk about the type of plants that you're going to put into your container. Remember I said in the beginning that it was important first to know where you're going to place your pot? It's extremely important, and here's a disclaimer. If you put shade plants in a full sun location, they will die. No amount of gardening you'll try to do will bring them back. Same thing with if you put full sun plants in a shady location. They will not grow very well either, and probably will end up wilting or dying. So you want to decide where your container is going to be to decide what type of plants that you're going to add to it. If you're unsure, ask one of those handy people walking around in your local nursery, or refer to these little cards that come inside of your plant container. It'll give you the information that you need to know if it's a full sun, partial sun, or full shade plant. And that'll help you when you're choosing what you want to put in there. Next, you want to decide what size container you're going to use. That's also important because that'll determine how many plants you'll need to adequately fill it and make it look beautiful. Lastly, when you go to find your plants, best thing to do is keep these 3 things in mind: thriller, filler, and spiller. And I'm going to describe what those are. So your thriller is normally the large plant that you place in the middle. It can be something like a spike or even something like this mother-in-law tongue. It's usually a plant that grows up higher, even like a palm leaf or an elephant ear plant. They grow very tall. They don't really spread out, but they grow tall and they provide a focal point and a lot of interest to your container garden. Next, number 2 is filler. You want to make sure that these plants are going to be the ones that are basically going to encircle your thriller plant. And what these plants do is they don't really grow high, but they grow out and fill wide. They basically do what they're called. They fill your plant. That's why they're called fillers. Lastly, I won't be using it today because I don't have one, but the spiller plant, and that basically is any kind of vine or plant that would cascade out the side of your container. It really gives a lot of visual texture, and it makes your plant look really wonderful. You can try a potato vine, you can do something like ivy. Just know that sometimes you got to kind of corral those in because they can take over. If they're one that kind of gets big and spills over, they might overtake some of your other plants. So just keep that in mind when you're planting. Once you've chosen all your plants that you're going to get, you're going to round up all your supplies, and then I'm going to meet you outside to show you how to plant them. All right, before we go outside and start to plant, disclaimer number 2. When it's really hot and sunny like today, please don't go outside and try to plant flowers like midday. You either want to plant your flowers early in the morning or you want to go later in the day, because if you go outside at noon, you are going to burn up. So do what I do. I usually plant later in the evening just because it's a little bit cooler and more comfortable to plant. And also, once you water all your plants, they'll have all evening to soak up all that wonderful water that you watered them with.